Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Foreign Policy Editor-in-Chief, Ravi Agrawal.
All right, hi everyone. Welcome to this lovely event. Thank you for making time to be here. I know it's a busy week for all of you. I'm Ravi Agrawal. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Foreign Policy magazine. You are here today for a special live taping of a show that is called Counterpoint. It is a foreign policy podcast in partnership with the Doha Forum. We are also going to air this recording on FP Live, which is another show that I do. And the reason why it is a twofer is because we have a very, very special guest here today. Who picks up the phone when Washington calls Europe? And the answer to that question is Kaja Kallas. She is the first female Prime Minister of Estonia, and today she is the High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy at the European Union. So let's please give her a very warm welcome as she comes on stage. High Representative. Okay. So we are live streaming this all over the world. Hello to everyone who's watching us. I'm going to let you in on a little TV secret. We are obviously going to tape this, so from about a minute from now, this is all going to be recorded, and the recorded version will be starting right about when I formally introduce her. So I'm going to ask all of you to make sure that if you need to clear your throat, you do it right now. And to make sure, you too, and make sure that your phones are on silent, and then we will get going. Okay, when you're ready, I'll let you take a sip. It's not wine, sadly.
I think it's better than it's not wine.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Hi, Representative Kallas. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So I have to begin with a rather surprising statement from US President Donald Trump just a few hours ago. He wrote on Truth Social, I'm going to quote him, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form." He went on to say, "Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act." Sounds like a real surprise, no?
Sounds like a plan. So, no, this is very, very good. I mean, we welcome those statements because this is what we have been telling all the time. So, really, I mean, I met with the Ukrainians also after they had the meeting with President Trump. They were very, very happy, and then the Arabs after the meeting with the President Trump also super content. So it's been a good day.
Do you have a sense of what caused him to change his mind? I mean, obviously he had just met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but this isn't the first time they've met. What's your sense of what happened here?
I understand the messages were already same during this meeting, which was quite positive with the Ukrainians. I think maybe he gets the data, how Russian economy is doing, and they are actually not winning this war. And also maybe it's New York that has positive effects. And I think, well, whatever the reason is, I think it's important that these messages come, and of course we welcome those statements.
So there's a term that's become popular on the internet. It's called TACO. Trump always chickens out. In other words, he pivots. And he has pivoted a fair bit on many issues. I think on Russia and Ukraine, there's been an evolution this year as he's realized that it isn't easy to solve the war in one day. But that said, what will you do? What will Europe do? What will Ukraine do if a few weeks from now there's aggression from Russia, and Trump actually doesn't do anything?
Well, we have been very clear on our own plan. What are we doing? What we are doing is to pressure Russia by sanctions. So we are just doing the 19th package of sanctions. We are also helping Ukraine militarily, financially, also politically as much as we can. So we are staying on the course. And everybody who is also joining that course is welcome. Because I think what is clear for everybody is that Ukrainians want peace more than anybody else. Today we had also events regarding the Ukrainian abducted children. And these stories are just horrible. I mean, children are just taken and I mean, tried, or they are re-educated and I mean, taken from their parents and homes and everything to, Russia. We saw and heard all these stories. So what is clear is that Ukrainians want peace. It's also clear that Europeans want peace. And it is also clear that Americans want peace. The only one who doesn't want peace is Russia. So what can we do in order to put him also in the position that he would also want peace? Because it takes at least two to want peace. It only takes one to want war. And as long as one wants war, we have war. So we have the tools in our hand to pressure. Wars end when one party runs out of money to finance this war. If you think about Russia, then they withdraw from Afghanistan when they couldn't break the will of the Afghans, and they ran out of money to run this war. So the statement by President Trump that Russian economy is not doing well, but we know very well they are hitting a point in the end of this year, beginning of next year, a very difficult point. And we have put sanctions on financing institutions. They can't raise capital outside. And also their friends are a bit reluctant of helping them. I mean, although we see China being the key enabler of Russia's war, they don't want to do it so bluntly. They are running into problems. So that is the point of really...
Russians will say they've transformed their economy into a wartime economy. They're still selling a lot of oil to China and India, obviously, although India has now been sanctioned for it. Even Europe buys some Russian crude, we know this. But there's also frozen Russian assets abroad that haven't been taken as some have proposed. Do you think the collective West is doing enough? I mean, it's been 3 years plus now.
The war is going on. We are clearly not doing enough. If the war would end, I mean, then we could say, okay, we were good, we did enough. No, right now, no.
The last few days have been even worse on that front, with Russia flying drones into several NATO members. There's Poland, there's your own country, Estonia, Romania, even Denmark. If this is a message from Moscow, what do you think the message is?
It was funny. Just a day before the first drone incursion to Poland, I had a meeting with journalists, and they asked, so what do you think, is he going to, go further and attack NATO? I said that, he doesn't want a war with NATO, but he wants to test us, how far he can go. And really, so to do this incursion and see how we react and learn a lot from how we react. And every next time, he's bolder because he can, and he's testing us. So two things. One is to test us, our unity, our NATO commitments, our courage to act. And the other is to sow fear inside our societies so that we would refrain from supporting Ukraine. If, I remember very clearly in the beginning of the war, we had in Versailles, we had the meeting of prime ministers, and remember then there was the discussion of close the skies, which means that you have to provide air defense, you have to provide planes, and in the beginning, if you look back, those discussions were very difficult. And why? Because you saw around the table, you have prime ministers and everybody wants to help Ukraine, but at the same time, we all have responsibility for our own country. And of course, in hindsight, we can see, in history, what was right, what was wrong, who did right and who did wrong. But at this moment, when you have to decide, and you're the prime minister, and you're like, some are saying, okay, if you give them, weapons or planes, then, it will bring war to your territory, because that is what Russia was saying. So, and you don't know whether it's just a threat or it's actual. So you have also obligation in front of your people, and then you always choose your own people. So my point being that he wants to sow fear in our societies that, look, this is coming to your territory. We should just give them what they want regarding Ukraine. Sorry about that. And then it will be all settled. But then look back, Minsk agreement, they got what they want. And, the appetite just grows.
That's never enough. There's another element to everything you're just saying about the people. So over the last few months, I think there's been a fair bit of celebration in Europe over the fact that at the NATO summit in The Hague, countries agreed to increase their defense spending to 3.5% of GDP with an additional 1.5% on defense infrastructure, adding up to 5%, which of course happens to be the number that President Trump wanted European countries to spend, and Canada. Now, there is a theory that over the last 80 years after World War II, Europe built a welfare state basically by outsourcing its energy to Russia, its export-driven growth to China, and its security to the United States. We know that the energy can't come from Russia anymore. The other two legs are quite shaky as well. The reason why I bring all of this up is in the coming years, and already, you are seeing the rise of the right across Europe. I can think of Spain, the UK, Germany, Italy, Czechia, a whole bunch of countries. And there's a direct correlation here between cutting social spending, cutting the welfare state, and the rise of the right. How are you going to manage that?
How are you going to manage it? But no, of course, this is extremely difficult because, again, nobody wants to spend on defense because there are so many things you have to spend the money on. Education, social security, healthcare, everything. But if you don't, if you have war, then none of this matters. And that's why, it's also important to really talk about this to the people, what it really is about, that, we have to cut because we can't, it's not sustainable. We have to do these things because we want to keep what we have. It very much, it was Plato who said that the role of the leaders is also to educate people. And you can see clearly that in those countries where, prime ministers really believe in this and really describe, and they are not those countries that are closer to the border that really feel the threat. If they do this, then the people also listen, okay, this is tough times, we have to do this.
Can you give me an example of a country that's done that successfully?
For example, Denmark. Okay. Denmark, not close to the border, but Prime Minister very strong on this. We need to do this. We need to do very difficult decisions, and the support is there. And I can tell you, as Prime Minister, I had to cut expenses, I had to raise taxes. Can tell you, not popular at all, but I didn't have a choice because, I bring you example from our own history. In 1933, our defense expenditure was record low because we were building up our country and, the money you can spend on all the things that people actually need. And in 1938, the defense expenditure was risen in budget 100%. But it was already too late because you couldn't procure, because it takes time. And the problem with defense spending is that you need to invest in defense while you have peace. And actually people don't feel it. When you feel it, you need it. It's way too late.
Let's talk about China. So I think in July you met Wang Yi, China's, the equivalent of China's foreign minister. And after that meeting, you told the South China Morning Post...
No, I didn't tell. Come on. South China Morning Post is...
Well, let me just tell everyone what was reported. What was reported
That's better.
was that that Minister Wang Yi told you that Beijing did not want Russia to lose the war in Ukraine. There was no correction issued, but you're saying that is not what he told you.
No, no, no. I'm not saying. He told me exactly that.
Okay.
But the interesting part of it is that they leaked it. It was a closed meeting.
Wait, so you didn't leak it?
No.
The Chinese leaked it?
Come on, it's a newspaper that is under control of China's government. So, excuse me, I don't have tools. No. They leaked it, and this is extremely interesting because, we were also quite surprised. It was a closed meeting, and if you read the article, the point of it, I think they really wanted to create like a bad image of me, like, he was lecturing me on history and this and that, and food was bad, and like, we're in Europe. Don't go there. It's not a nice place, but from that
sure.
article.
Yeah, I read it. I will just say I was in China shortly after, and I spoke with several officials there. They claim that not only did they not leak it, but that this is also not what they believe.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is actually, but that's interesting from that meeting because, the meeting with the Chinese is like, what they're going to say. So you have all the defensives. Okay, this comes up, you take this, you say this, it's very, very much, predictable, let it be so. But I was really pushing him on why are you supporting Russia? If you want good relations with us, why are you doing this? Like, I didn't let go. And then he said, he said that, it's not in our interest that this war ends because then America will turn to us. And we were all quite surprised, even, asked because you have the translators on both sides, was the translation correct? Because, they had never said it out like this. But it was, and then he was really surprised that they leaked it. But I think there it actually got out of hand. They wanted to leak it like... showing that, this wasn't, so it slipped in. So whoever leaked it didn't really think it through.
Fascinating.
But funny thing was, then I was in Japan, and actually the think tankers there were saying that their estimate or their assessment of this was that it was on purpose, because apparently the war or support to Russia is not very popular in China. So the government wants to show why are they, on the side of Russia, to show that it's in your interest. So that was their assessment.
Fascinating. Now,
and
despite
he said
today,
it later also, like
he did.
Others,
okay.
Yes.
Again, they deny it, to me at least. So despite this week's news, I have to say, America's been a fairly unreliable partner for Europe this year. I'm allowed to say that. You don't have to agree. Longer term, do you think China might be not a better partner, but a partner that you would turn to more, whether it's trade, given all the trade turbulence that the United States is imposing on the world, or whether it is China's immense advances in solar and wind technology and EVs, all of which would be very helpful to Europe?
Well, we have worries with China, and one side is the economic coercive practices against our companies, export controls. I mean, not letting our companies in and exercising or enjoying this all in Europe. And the other part is also their, being the key enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine. So regarding the economic coercive practices, if you look at their strength, I mean, really being the critical raw materials that come from China, the electric batteries that come from China, chemicals, ships, whatever. So they have a lot of power in their hand. Now, when I go around the world, then countries really are looking into diversifying their trade portfolios, because America has started, these tariffs against many countries. Countries are quite surprised by this, and what it tells is that, you know, we have put too many eggs in one basket. And that's why, you know, we are building the partnerships. We have like over 70 trade agreements already with countries. And the problem with China is, if you add all this up, this is the worry that all the countries have. But to counter that, we need to really work together. Which means that not building new dependencies on China, but actually work together to counter the economic coercive practices that are, you know, not in our interest. And there you need also United States, you need UK, Europe, Canada, Mexico, India. You need all to counter that, because that is the worry that everybody has. To answer your question, whether that could be counterbalanced, we are very wary of building new dependencies, being hurt by the dependencies, like you mentioned, of energy or security that we have had so far. So every connection you have, or every dependency it may also hurt you. So make sure that you're connected or dependent on friends.
Yeah.
And you know, that is where the question comes. So we are trying to have more friends around the world, and I must say that. Considering the big picture and the acts of superpowers, we are increasingly more popular.
It's very diplomatic. Let's talk about the Middle East. Your predecessor, Josep Borrell, has accused the EU of inaction when it comes to the distribution of aid and food in Gaza. I think this is fairly directly maybe also a criticism of you. How do you respond?
I respond, look at the facts, what we have achieved. Actually, we worked with the Israeli government on the humanitarian understanding, and really having concrete measures, like concrete points, how many trucks in, how many critical infrastructure repaired, the Jordanian-Egyptian routes opened, water given. I mean, all these points, I don't remember it all, and we were really monitoring. So, of course, I agree with you, it's not enough, but it's better than zero. So, and having this conversation that my predecessor never had with the Israeli government, then, you know, it gives you the tools to pressure and say and call almost every day during the summer, like, what is this? Let this, you know, you're not.
If I may, I think the sentiment of what he's trying to say is less about the facts. It's more of the naming and shaming. And there are two approaches, really. There's the naming and shaming in the media, and there's the back-end diplomacy where you pick up the phone and you call Benjamin Netanyahu. So you're saying the former is not as good as speaking to the Israelis?
I've never called Prime Minister Netanyahu. I've never met him. My counterpart has been Foreign Minister Saar. But if, like, my thinking was, what can we do? If everybody agrees that the situation is untenable, the humanitarian situation, what can we do to improve that situation? And we have tried to do that. I mean, we are the biggest supporters of Palestinian Authority. We are the biggest humanitarian aid donors to the Palestinians. We are helping we are the most active international actor on Gaza. And, you know, having also meetings with the Arabs, I mean, I think it shouldn't be that we are the biggest donors of Palestinian Authority, considering that it's their neighborhood. They're rich countries, actually. So I mean, we get a lot of heat that Europe should do this or that, but we actually, what I want to say, that we are doing a lot if you take those points. Of course, not enough.
I think the sentiment of the heat, if I may, it comes from Europe being sort of the source, in some senses, of the origins of the problems, right? In this particular case.
Well, yes, I see what you're pointing on, and that is also hindering all the member states to come on board with all the decisions. So that's why I've been focusing on the things that we agree on. We all agree on two-state solutions. So what do we do in order to achieve that? So we have to help the Palestinian Authority so that the two states would be more equal. We all agree that the humanitarian aid has to get in. So what do we do in order to achieve that? Of course, you can make big words, but it doesn't stop the killing. And we have been really trying to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground and help the people. And it is frustrating, of course, that we haven't managed, considering what is going on, but we are trying our best.
Britain and France recognized Palestine as a state in the last few days. Do you have a take on that? Is that something that you would advocate for? There's a trade-off. It might not be a good thing, some scholars would say.
Well, again, if we focus on whether it will stop the human suffering, it doesn't immediately do that. But the majority of member states now have recognized Palestine, and you know, it's not up to Europe to recognize, but the individual states. I think it's again sending this message to keep the two-state solution alive, to keep the two states more equal. But of course, in practice, it requires funding of the Palestinian Authority. It requires necessary reforms. It requires also, you know, recovery and reconstruction. So, but we are not there because right now we still have the war. So the ceasefire, release of hostages is also something that we are supporting.
Let me put to you a sentiment that I often hear when I travel around the world, mostly in the global south. And the sentiment is as follows. Israel is breaking rules in its engagement with Gazans right now, but also around the region. It has attacked many countries in the last few weeks in pursuit of what it will call terrorists, but it has broken international law to do so. There is a global sentiment that if Israel can break the rules, what is the point of rules? And therefore, it makes it much harder for Europe to criticize Russia for breaking the rules when it attacks not only Ukraine, but other countries on your turf.
Well, first of all, Russia's war against Ukraine started in 2022. Did all those countries say that, you know, it's against international law and shouldn't? It was before the 7th of October attacks and the war. But I mean, the international law is very clear, and we have been clear as well. I mean, the international law gives you two possibilities to use force. One is in self-defense, and the other one is with the UN Security Council resolution. So if those are not followed, international law is not followed, and we have been very, very clear about this. Now, I always go, when I go and meet countries around the world who come to criticize us regarding Palestine, then I always ask, before I go, I ask the numbers also. How much have you supported the Palestinians? And usually I see very small numbers and even zeros. So, you know, it's like, okay, if, you know, we are doing like 500 million to support the Palestinians. We are doing 1.6 billion to support the Palestinian Authority to keep the two-state solution alive, so that others should also you know, come and chip in, not only with words, but actual deeds and money to keep this alive. So, but regarding international law, I mean, we have been always very clear about the international law, and right now we see UNGA80, and we see that multilateralism and international law is under heavy fire.
If you had to judge the state of the rules-based order today, how would you grade it?
The world order is changing. That is very clear. Now, I think it's up to us. How do we really, you know, do we get our act together? Oh, we don't, because I clearly see the forces who want a world where might makes right are increasing, the superpowers, and it is dangerous for everybody else. And going around the world, of course, the countries are very different in sizes, and coming from a very small country myself, although there was Paul Henry Spark, who was the Belgian Prime Minister, who said that there are only two types of countries in the world: the small countries and those who haven't realized that they are small countries yet. Looking at also big countries, hundreds of millions of people, it is also in their interest that the international law is surviving, and they are afraid because there could be a neighbor that has appetite for your natural resources, and if it is all out there that if you have the power you just take it, then a lot of people are going to get killed, a lot of human beings are going to suffer, and if it is also the decline of democracy at the same time, which means that one person is deciding in some countries, then that means that there are Putin who says that let's go and attack another country, and they do. They send soldiers, and a lot of people are going to get killed. Not his children, but other people's children. And then you think how unnecessary this really is. I mean, if I go to schools and then you ask the children, paint a picture of ideal. So they do all the trees and flowers and mother and father and siblings and a dog and a cat and everything. And then you say that how would now make this picture war from this same picture? So they go with black, like everything down, and then you say now turn it back to peace. It's impossible. So because of the destruction, everything. So making the point that in democracy, one man cannot decide to go and really impose this suffering on people. And that's why if you have the decline of democracy, the rise of powers that want the world where might makes right, then it's a very, very bad combo.
So let me bring up a democracy and one man. I'll bring up Donald Trump, who we began this interview with. And, it's very interesting because when we started chatting, we were talking about a Truth Social post in which he appeared to be backing Ukraine with words, if not actions. But earlier today, when he spoke at the UN General Assembly, lest we forget what he said, he questioned whether the United Nations should exist. He doubled down on America killing drug smugglers in international waters. This is an action that some American lawmakers have said could be illegal. He said climate change is the, quote, greatest con job ever perpetrated. When you hear stuff like that, and America is still your most important ally, where do values fit into this relationship?
I mean, it has been a long day, so hence the pauses. No, this multilateralism and international law and everything is also in change, I think. And like I said before, we have to look where it's going, really, and to keep that up. Our relationship with the United States it is different under every administration. And we need to adapt to the way of working while really respecting the values and principles that we are standing for. We are a democracy that's, and even worse, we have 27 democracies, which means that taking decisions, it takes time. It's, very often you get criticized why it's taking so much time. and all this. But eventually, when we get there, we stick to our decisions, and that is actually some that countries around the world value, because we are reliable and predictable partners. Once we get there, once we get to trade deals, we keep to our promises. We don't change it overnight. So that is some value as well. But yes, the relationship is different, definitely.
There's a theory of late. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out how to deal with Trump in his second term. And there's a theory of late that one route is flattery. And so we've had the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer bring a letter from the King in which he says it's unprecedented that someone would get invited for a second state visit. Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, called him daddy.
Actually, he didn't. He didn't. I have to really defend Mark here, because I watched the interview, so it wasn't like he did directly call him daddy.
But Trump supporters took it as such and printed out daddy T-shirts. But the larger point is that flattery has been a route, and I'm beginning to think that what do you get for it? Because it's unclear to me what you get in return. And of course, the EU got a 15% tariff, which is 15% more than zero. And, so what is the best way to appeal to a president who is, nakedly transactional?
Tell me. No, I mean, I don't have good answers. I mean, people are trying to get through, and I think we are living in this extremely dangerous time. So this is extremely important that we are sticking together. And today, again, the statements of President Trump were very much welcomed by everybody when it comes to what he said about Ukraine, also the meetings that they had with the Arab leaders regarding the Middle East. So I think everybody is trying to find their ways to work with the new administration and President Trump.
Last question. If any one of us were to define American foreign policy under Trump, it's America first. That's what they all say. What is the European vision of foreign policy?
European vision of foreign policy is actually to work together with all the countries. I mean, when we see that some are saying putting their interests in front, then we are coming with the positive offer, and our offer is very clear. I mean, if we compare ourselves to other big powers when it comes to trade, for example, or when it comes to investments as well, I mean, you can criticize that Europe has rules, but the rules are made to actually protect people. I bring you one example. Investments from China to Serbian copper factory. What they did was to remove all the filters, because it's more effective when you don't have filters and everything. And what it brought to the people was lung cancer around that factory. So we don't actually do that. And when we talk to our African partners or Asian partners, it's like we want equal partnerships. Like really, we have interest, of course, but we also want the prosperity of your countries in your territories, so that we don't have migration pressure towards us, because nobody wants to leave their homes unless they really have to. So really trying to find mutual partnerships, and that is the way we work. If countries are a bit hurt by the tariffs that are put, and I don't mean physically, but also why, asking why us, then, we come with a positive offer, okay, but we also have a good market. We can work together, and we have Mercosur agreement, which will create the biggest free trade area of 700 million people. So we are working really to find mutual partnerships. So I don't know what is the slogan. I'm not really good at those.
I'll come up with one. Hi, Representative Kallas. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Let's hear it for her again. It's been a very long day for her. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, all of you, for being here. I'm not sure if there's more booze outside, but you can mingle, and we'd love to say hi and chat. Thank you again for coming, and have a great rest of your UNGA week. And if I see our executive podcast producer here, so I must say, if you haven't downloaded Counterpoint FP Live and all of our great podcasts, please do so now. Thanks, all of you.